Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
We have a truly unique set of source materials today. It's a narrative, a story, detailing the absolute end of the universe.
And not just from any perspective. It's written from the point of view of, well, perhaps the most powerful and certainly the most arrogant being in existence.
The omnipotent entity known only as Q.
That's right. So our mission today, for you, is intensely cosmological. We're going right to the edge of reality itself.
And we're not just, analyzing some dry theory about a universal contraction.
No, not at all. We are examining how an ultimate being, a being defined by infinite power and, maybe more importantly, infinite boredom, how he grapples with genuine loss.
With love, even.
And ultimate futility, all when faced with a threat that simply ignores his will. It's a fascinating psychological deep dive.
And this entire story, Q's personal manuscript, is framed by this other perspective, a mysterious third-person view.
Right, from another incredibly powerful, initially unnamed entity that the text just calls she.
And what we learn about she in just the first few pages, it immediately introduces what might be the most painful paradox of this whole thing.
The ennui of eternity.
The ennui of eternity is a perfect way to put it.
It's the ultimate cosmic burnout. I mean, she is so profoundly tired of existence that she's actively thinking about ending it all.
Just pulling the plug on everything.
And everything. And why? Simply because of a paralyzing boredom. The source details how she looks out at the cosmos, the planets, stars, nebulae, and just concludes
that it's all the same.
Exactly. Even though they're infinitely varied, some volcanic, some ice-covered, tiny ones, massive ones, to her, they all end up feeling very much the same.
That insight is so critical for understanding omniscience, isn't it?
Yeah.
When you can see everything all at once, the sheer volume of it, it reduces it all to tedious repetition.
It's like the difference between hearing one song you absolutely love versus hearing every single song ever written, all played at the exact same time. It's just noise.
It's cosmic static.
And that paradox, it just intensifies when she considers the multiverse, the endless array of possibilities.
What ifs?
All the what ifs. She tracks these causal threads, and in one reality, a single choice leads to a devastating war. But in another reality, the exact same choice leads to centuries of enduring peace.
So if you live in all times, if you see all possible outcomes of every single action playing out simultaneously,
then the very idea of consequence just evaporates.
Nothing matters.
Nothing matters. If anything can happen, and in the multiverse everything does happen, then the act of choosing a path or celebrating a victory or even mourning a loss, it all becomes completely pointless.
The source material really nails this. It says the multiverse became absolutely screamingly dull and boring.
It's a fantastic line. She even notes the tragic irony of it all. Sometimes vile people accidentally save the world by killing someone even viler than them.
And pure good people sometimes unknowingly enable some massive suffering.
Right. So the moral calculus, when you spread it across infinite realities, it all just balances out perfectly. The grand experiment of life, to her, feels like an abysmal, repetitive failure.
So that's our starting point. A narrator, she, who is literally deciding if the whole show is worth continuing.
And she's just standing on a beach, feeling the sand, and lamenting her own strangely human, mannish toes.
That little detail, that touch of human vulnerability in an ultimate being, it sets the stage perfectly for what comes next.
Which is Q's manuscript, delivered literally. It washes up in a corked bottle, rescued from this lapping, completely indifferent ocean.
And that manuscript brings us directly to the star of the show. A being who knows everything is just as bored, but reacts with chaos instead of quiet resignation.
And now we're inside his head. We're in the mind of the narrator, Q himself. He introduces himself with this incredible flourish that's just so perfectly him.
The wonderful, the magnificent, the living end.
Hailing from the Q Continuum, a realm that has existed since, as he puts it, before time was time.
And the irony is just immediate. Q details the Continuum's original mandate, which sounds, well, it sounds thrilling.
It does. To push, to probe, to experiment, and to see the picture within the great tapestry that is the universe. That mandate is the purest form of exploration, of going beyond what is known.
But the reality, according to Q, is that his colleagues have just completely given up on that.
They fail. They're consumed by that exact same cosmic boredom we were just talking about.
He says they specialize in sitting about on the rocking chair of life, watching the universe pass them by.
It's such a great image. They've become stagnant, complacent, and Q, of course, positions himself as the maverick.
A rebel.
He's the antidote to existential lethargy. He's the one who continues to question, to stir things up, to make jokes.
And his authority to do all this, it stems from his power, which is absolute. It's self-generated.
Completely. Q is omnipotent. He achieves anything just by willing it to be so, which means he can dismiss human concepts like
Right and wrong.
totally. He sees them as utterly trivial notions that are just applied by lesser beings, beings whose only expertise is, labeling others rather than actually understanding the vast mechanics of consequence.
So his actions create their own moral reality.
That's a perfect way to put it. What's so fascinating, though, is how Q, this omnipotent being with all of space and time at his disposal, spends so much of his energy focused on
Humanity.
those ever-annoying creatures, humans. It's a genuine philosophical obsession for him. He views their exploration efforts as fundamentally backward.
And egocentric.
Deeply egocentric. He argues that they believe they have to, quote, hurl oneself into the void and see what's out there.
When in his view, they haven't even finished the endless amount of self-examination and self-exploration they could do on their own little world.
Exactly. His contempt really stems from their failure to match their technological power with any kind of philosophical maturity.
And he gives some pretty damning examples of that short-sightedness.
Oh, yeah. He points to the 20th century, a time when they invented and then detonated the atomic bomb.
Which is, a shocking lack of foresight about the consequences of your own creations.
It's the ultimate failure of comprehension, right? But the example that captures that gap between creation and comprehension better than any other is the VCR.
The VCR, I love this.
It's brilliant. They invented this incredible piece of technology. It can literally record and play back time. But
They couldn't program the clock.
they couldn't program the clock. Q observes that 12.0 blinked on and off in silent mockery of their technological advances. It's a perfect tiny microcosm of their genius and their stunning inability to grasp the basics.
And this failure, this inability of humans to live up to their potential,
Yeah.
it leads him to his deepest pity.
Right. And that pity is reserved not for the average human, but for Data.
Mr. Calculator Man, as Q calls him.
Mr. Calculator Man. By all of Q's metrics, Data is infinitely superior. He's immune to aging, to physical frailties. He has an intellect that's light years beyond even their most brilliant minds.
And yet, what is Data's highest single aspiration?
To be human.
To be human. Q calls this desire short-sighted and bone-stupid. It is, to him, the ultimate waste of perfect material.
You can really feel his frustration. Why would a being who could be running the planet, or even the entire Federation, choose instead to actively desire to be less than what they already are?
This is more than just an insult from him, though. It really gets to his core motivation, doesn't it?
It does. It highlights it perfectly. He operates on this idea of maximization, of elevation. He sees Data as this golden, eternal being who is just pining for what he calls the dubious gift of humanity.
So Q sees himself as this sort of cosmic mentor. He's trying to push these limited species into becoming something better,
But they just keep dragging him down into the mediocrity of their own self-imposed limitations.
which sets up the dynamic of this whole narrative perfectly. Q, the arrogant god, obsessed with humanity's pathetic limitations, is about to be stripped of his power.
And forced to struggle right alongside the very people he disdains.
And we get to see if his contempt is actually justified, or if there's something genuinely valuable in that dubious gift after all.
And that ultimate existential chaos, it starts ironically. It doesn't start with a big bang or a flash of light.
No, it starts with a fishing trip.
A fishing trip. The narrative kicks off with Captain Picard and Data on the holodeck deep-sea fishing. They're trying to catch this massive swordfish that Picard has named Big Arnold.
And Q just relishes pointing out the absurdity of his need for control.
His control fetish, absolutely. Picard programmed the sea to be perfectly calm. He's seeking total control over his environment, even inside a fantasy.
And that attempt at manufactured order is about to be completely shattered by an entirely unplanned absolute force.
Picard hooks something, but he realizes pretty quickly it's not Big Arnold. It's too strong. It's pulling the entire ship, the Hornblower.
The ship starts moving backward faster and faster. The skies darken.
And they realize they're caught on the outer rim of a maelstrom, a colossal cosmic whirlpool.
The scale just immediately shifts from a personal fantasy to something universal.
It really does. As they're pulled down into it, Picard sees thousands of other objects spiraling down into the blackness with them. It's a massive universal drain.
And that's the first real signal that this isn't just one of Q's usual tricks or tests.
No, this is different. And crucially, Q notes that this drain is utterly impersonal. It highlights the universal nature of the threat. He saw, and I'm quoting here, humans, Andorians, Vulcans, Tellarites, Klingons, Kardashians, Borg, on and on.
With the maelstrom giving no preference, making no distinction between peace-loving and warmongering.
All were equal, all were helpless.
That impersonal nature is what's so terrifying. It means the threat isn't discriminatory. Q's meddling is usually based on some kind of judgment or a whim.
This is just true entropy, a force that simply is and does not care.
And this huge external terror is immediately paired with Q's own personal devastation.
We find out that he, Lady Q, who he describes as brassy, with a low tolerance for his foolishness.
I like her already.
Me too. And their son, young Q, who's the first Q born in the Continuum, about 10 Earth years old. They were also deep-sea fishing on a planet called Dante Nix.
They were standing on the ocean floor, having a family moment. Q was showing off, pretending to be terror-stricken by a fish.
But then he feels it. A real current. It begins to flow against him swiftly, like a powerful river. And he tries to stop it with his will.
Which for an omnipotent being should be an effortless, instantaneous command.
It should be, but he orders, commands, begs, even howls at the water. And it simply ignores him. The water, he says, had gone berserk.
So this is the first time Q, the ultimate being, is truly and absolutely powerless against a natural force.
And that moment of physical and existential powerlessness is just compounded by the loss of his family. He hears a scream from Lady Q and a shout from his son.
And in those two cries, he hears something that he says should be unthinkable in the Q continuum.
Pure gut-twisting fear.
Wow.
Lady Q and Q are swept away, swallowed up by the current, and Q is left completely alone.
He only manages to regain enough presence of mind, I guess, driven by desperation and maybe a sliver of that ego,
Always the ego.
to pluck Picard and Data to safety just before their ship disappears into the abyss.
It's an act of desperate scrambling, not omnipotence. And it sets the scene for Q to return to the Continuum and demand answers.
And the answers he finds are chilling.
Yep, to say the least. He finds his fellow Q in a state of barely controlled chaos, but, and this is the key thing, not panic.
They're in a simulation of Times Square, and there's this giant black ball, a black hole, descending, signifying the end.
And the head of the Continuum just delivers the cosmological truth very matter-of-factly. He says, the end of everything.
Just like that.
The expansion of the universe is over. The final contraction has begun, driven by inevitable entropy. And their reaction,
They welcome it.
they view the final termination as a consummation devoutly to be wished because they've suffered eons of terminal boredom.
And this is the moment where Q's story connects so powerfully back to the beginning, to the framing narrative of Melanie.
Exactly. Both ultimate beings have reached a point where infinite life and infinite possibility leads to only one desirable outcome. Cessation. The end.
And the implication for lesser species, for people like us, is just deeply chilling. Data asks why the Federation hasn't noticed this cosmic contraction.
And the head Q provides this mind-bending axiom. He says, if the universe were shrinking at the steady rate of 1 inch a day, and all means of measurement were shrinking at a proportionate rate, then there would be no way for anyone to know.
So the Federation's greatest minds, their telescopes, their gravitometers, they're just too limited by their own dimensional reality to see it.
They're shrinking with the universe. They can't see the box because they're inside it.
The final conflict then erupts when the head Q demands that Q just accept the collective decision to die peacefully.
But Q refuses. He can't. He's driven by the unresolved fate of his family, and he points out this massive logical flaw in their command.
Right. He says, if this is truly inevitable entropy, then nothing I do could possibly stop it. So you shouldn't care what I do.
But if you are trying to restrain me, that implies you're afraid I can stop it.
Which means it's not inevitable.
Precisely. And this defiance, fueled by rage and that tiny sliver of hope that his family might still exist somewhere outside the contraction, it pushes Q onto the path of action. He rejects the Continuum's wish to go quietly into that good night.
And for that, he's cast out, stripped of his power, and sent on the journey that we're about to track.
Yeah.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting. The narrative structure shifts from, pure cosmology to something else, a profound psychological metaphor.
Right. Once Q refuses to accept oblivion, he's cast out, and he's temporarily paralyzed and powerless. The
Yeah.
reality they all plunge into is not random destruction.
No, it's very structured.
It is. And Data, in this remarkable moment of android insight, is the one who figures it out. He observes that their journey through this collapsing reality, it perfectly mirrors the human grieving process.
The famous 5 stages.
Exactly. Denial, anger, bargaining, despair, and finally, acceptance. The collapsing universe is literally externalizing Q's internal terminal grief.
So let's start with stage 1, denial. Q is first placed, paralyzed on a pedestal. Data notes the irony of the great Q being unable to even move.
And Q immediately connects it to his own past. He admits, oh, I've been here before. He says he was Prometheus or Loki, chained to a rock for giving humans fire long, long ago.
So this temporary powerlessness, it's the continuum's punishment. It's a form of denial. They're denying him the ability to act on his grief.
But Q, being Q, breaks out of the paralysis. And the transition to anger is immediate and brutal.
They plunge into the second level, a train station.
This is the train of torment. It's a terrifying allegory of inevitable fate. All these different beings are being herded into cattle cars by aggressive overseers. Jem'Hadar, Kardashians.
The train is moving toward a single destination. And there's this sense of overwhelming, indiscriminate cruelty that just perfectly defines the anger stage. The fury that life is being forced toward an unwanted end.
And who is enforcing this mandate of futility?
Locutus Borg, an alternate version of Picard who was never rescued from the collective.
The perfect figure to be in charge. He stands atop the foremost car, declaring the universal mandate. Resistance is futile. This figure is Picard's shadow self, the ultimate symbol of lost humanity and complete emotionless control.
He's specifically designed to provoke Q and Picard's deepest fears.
Of course. Locutus represents Q's own fear that his desire for chaos and individuality is ultimately pointless, that in the end, ultimate order will always win.
So how does Q react? He doesn't have his full omnipotence.
He reacts not with the snap of his fingers, but with gritty, messy, almost human defiance. As Locutus bears down on Picard, Q grabs handfuls of coal from the engine.
The fuel of this torturous man-made machine.
And he throws it in Locutus's face.
It's a stunning visual, the ultimate being fighting with coal.
It is. While the Borg is momentarily blinded, Q shoves him aside and manages to sever the coupling connecting the boxcars to the locomotive.
Dovey saves them.
This one act of selfless chaos saves all those terrified souls inside the cars from being incinerated in the tunnel up ahead, the end of the line. It's the trickster acting with pure, messy altruism.
But the journey isn't over. They're still being driven by Q's residual fury.
Still in the anger stage, they land next in a burning city ruled by a being named M.
M is from the M Continuum, Q's ancient, mutually hateful peers.
Right, and we get this crucial piece of cosmic history here that we need to understand. The rivalry between the Q and M Continuums is ancient. It dates back to a conflict that began, apparently, simply because the M Continuum was annoyed by Q's strutting and his meddling in lower reality.
So an ego battle.
A cosmic ego battle. And the collateral damage of their titanic ego battles is just staggering. The source explicitly mentions that their wars created the interstellar curiosities we know today.
Black holes, wormholes that allow faster than light travel.
And even the explosion that became visible to humans as the Star of Bethlehem.
Wow. So this context shows us that M isn't just a rival, she's a co-creator of cosmic chaos.
Exactly. And M, acting as the adjudicator in this collapsing reality, immediately embodies the spirit of blame and anger. She blames Q for the entire universal breakdown.
She cites his constant chaos, his failure to maintain the universal balance that was supposedly keeping reality stable.
She's just looking for a cosmic scapegoat. She's using Q's past misdeeds as justification for his present misery.
This is the critical moment of righteous anger, but not from Q.
No, it's from Data. Data, who has been observing Q's despair and the sheer absurdity of this blame game, decides to access his emotion chip.
And he just lets loose?
He lets loose an amplified shout so loud that it bounds and rebounds off the dome of the city, shaking the very foundation of M's reality.
He becomes this emotional tiger, shedding his logic just for a moment to blast M for playing on the overwhelming need of the assembled masses to tear down what they don't understand.
And his fury, paradoxically, is fueled by logic. M's actions are irrational. They're just seeking a scapegoat for inevitable entropy. It's pointless.
And the volume of his voice is so overwhelming that it causes the dome to shake and collapse, swallowing M and sending them all plunging into the next level.
Data's non-human fury literally shattered the stage of blame. It's a fantastic subversion of their dynamic. Q, the one who taught Data about the power of chaos, is saved by Data's ability to channel emotion for a logical outcome.
So Data's theory about the grieving stages proves to be perfectly correct.
Spot on. And it leads them straight into the land of despair, which manifests as a chaotic marketplace, a bazaar.
And this stage represents bargaining.
And who's in charge of the bargaining? A Ferengi Grand Nagus, of course. The ultimate opportunist.
He's capitalizing on the end of everything by selling dispensations and absolutions, literally profiting from universal fear.
He greets Q with this grotesque enthusiasm, declaring, "I worship stupidity, and you're my new god."
So Q tries to bargain with him. He needs information about his family. He even offers himself as the Nagus' servant forever if he loses a guessing game.
Right, and Q uses a tiny flash of his localized omnipotence to win the game by instantly naming the exact number the Nagus is thinking of.
But the Nagus, being Ferengi, cheats. He just denies it and refuses to cooperate.
And Q is momentarily paralyzed by this petty, stupid injustice. But this is where Picard steps in with a brilliant, purely human strategic move.
He doesn't use violence. He doesn't threaten him with immediate power.
No, he weaponizes Q's future omnipotence.
That's clever.
It's genius. Picard quietly warns the Nagus that if they succeed and the universe is restored, Q will be omnipotent again. And, he says, Q never forgets an offense, even a trivial one.
He details the vengeance that would fall on the Nagus for welshing on a bet and impeding the search for Q's son, explaining that the pain he can imagine will pale compared to the reality.
And the Nagus, absolutely terrified by the prospect of Q's eternal patient revenge, he just caves immediately.
And he reveals that the ruler of this domain calls himself God.
And that this is the entity that's drawing power from this whole parasitic layer of reality.
Q immediately dismisses the idea of a single supreme being. He calls it a fairy tale for primitive minds.
Of course he does. He asserts that the Q assumed the responsibility of being the greatest force, and they made their own reality. For him, the only way for humankind to advance is to stop believing in something greater than themselves.
But Data's theory continues to hold. They enter God's house, which is this vast, dark tent.
And inside, they find a windswept hill on a dark plain. And sitting there is Q.
But he's no longer a child. He's a figure with cold, cruel eyes.
This is the stage of ultimate loss, of despair. Q realizes his son has gained power by striking a bargain with this god entity in return for a promise to never be alone.
And that's the profound psychological betrayal. His son rejected the father who promised to always be there in favor of this cosmic crutch.
Q confronts his son, who just boasts that everything he is comes from him and that he's there to rejoice in his power and worship him.
And in that moment, Q realizes the sinister, parasitic truth.
This so-called God is not an entity of divine creation. It's a parasite that derives its only power by drawing strength from those who worship it. Q declares, the only power it has is its ability to derive strength from that which worships it.
So Q, having traveled to the abyss for his family, is just horrified by his son's pathetic devotion. This is the complete antithesis of Q's self-generated power and pride.
He refuses to beg. He shouts, "Have I taught you nothing? Have you no pride in who and what you are? You are Q."
He then tells his son that he would rather be wiped from existence than be the father of a creature who needs to worship.
He declares, "I wash my hands of you. Stay here with your God and both of you be damned." It's the ultimate act of defiant love, delivered through the absolute rejection of weakness.
But the pain, it's far from over. Q and Picard then plunge into the final level of grief.
Characterized by utter futility, this is the deepest, darkest pit of despair.
And this final level is just a bleak landscape of soft dirt where figures are silently sinking into the ground.
And there they find Lady Q. She's naked and blind, and she's embracing oblivion. She has completely internalized the universal entropy.
She just whispers, "It's over. It doesn't matter. None of it matters anymore."
And Q tries desperately to save her. He's crawling toward her on his belly, but he's paralyzed. Not physically this time, but philosophically.
By Zeno's paradox.
By Zeno's paradox. For you listening, Zeno's paradox is the idea that to travel any distance, you must first travel half that distance, and then half of the remaining distance, and so on, infinitely.
So you're always getting closer, but you never actually arrive.
And in Q's mind, that's what's happening. He's constantly closing the distance, but never reaching her. His ultimate power, which should transcend such trivial human concepts, is failing him because of a logical impossibility.
It's reflecting his own paralyzing psychological state where any effort feels infinitely futile. He's so close to saving her, but his own mind is telling him he can never truly reach the goal.
And in that moment of absolute desperation, realizing his power, his logic, his arrogance are all completely useless, he screams out 3 words.
3 words that were anathema to him. Words he never, ever expected to utter.
I love you. I do.
Ow!
This is the moment where Q, the being who disdained all human emotion and morality as trivial, finally embraces his ultimate vulnerability.
But it's too late.
It's too late. She sinks completely beneath the dirt, having totally embraced the notion that there's just no point. Q collapses, completely crushed by the failure of his omnipotent will to overcome existential despair.
So, having hit absolute rock bottom, having experienced true powerlessness and total loss, Q has nowhere left to go.
Nowhere but into the final stage, acceptance.
Right.
Or, in his case, defiance.
Q and Picard, now somehow reunited with a recovered Q, find themselves back in the Q Continuum's Times Square simulation.
And the black hole is seconds away from swallowing everything.
Q is utterly exhausted. He's prepared to accept the collective's wish to die peacefully. He even admits that everything he's done has just felt like one endless exercise in futility.
But Picard, his favorite human foil, steps in for the final, pivotal human argument.
He urges Q not to quit. He argues that Q needs to be an example for his son, that an omniscient being, even when facing total annihilation, knows where he stands and refuses to submit meekly.
And that challenge, to provide one final belligerent example of self-worth to his son, is what pushes Q to his final act.
He finds the courage not to fight the black hole itself, but to defy the force behind it.
As the countdown reaches 0 and the black hole expands, Q focuses his remaining power, not on combat, but on documentation and ultimate rebellion.
He stretches out his hand, and a bottle appears. And inside that bottle is the complete manuscript of their harrowing journey.
The very source material we've been discussing this whole time.
And he hurls that bottle into the heart of the abyss.
And he declares his defiant identity one last time. I, Q, am the trickster. I, Q, am the Lord of Chaos. I, Q, defy you to the last.
And if you think you can stop me just by ending the universe, then I'm here to tell you that you're going to have to do better than that.
It is a spectacular, arrogant, and utterly desperate act of pure recorded defiance just hurled into the face of oblivion.
And the scene cuts immediately. We're back with the unnamed woman, she, on the beach.
She finds the bottle, she uncorks it, and she begins reading Q's manuscript. And the description of her reaction is just incredible.
She laughs, a sound she hadn't heard in ages. She's exhilarated because she's discovered something entirely outside her own knowledge.
And here is the stunning resolution, the big reveal. The unnamed woman is Melanie.
Melanie, the human Q, met centuries ago in Times Square before a massive massacre.
That's the one. Q had witnessed the senseless carnage of humanity and had crouched over her dying body, closing her glorious cobalt blue eyes and making a morbid joke.
So Melanie, now revealed as the entity capable of altering reality. The one who was initially depressed and contemplating ending all of reality.
She chose to live for another day, and she did it simply because Q's manuscript surprised her.
That's all it took, a surprise.
That's all it took. She calls Q's desperate cry of defiance a belligerent prayer. She wasn't looking for a noble hero or some grand scientific solution. She was just looking for a reason to care.
For something to disrupt the endless tedium of knowing everything.
Exactly. Q's stubbornness and his ability to move her to genuine laughter, thereby breaking her profound ennui that satisfied her.
So Melanie is the ultimate source of reality. She tells the young Q that she's keeping his father locked up in here, safe and sound.
And she taps her chest to indicate that she holds Q's reality and perhaps the entire universe within her own psychological limits.
And she sends Q back in a little sandboat, telling him to relay a message.
Melanie says hello.
And the crisis is instantly resolved. The universe stabilized. Q, Lady Q, and Q are reunited back on the Hornblower. The sea is calm, the skies are blue, it's all over.
Q finds the corked bottle again. Picard uncorks it, but Q, who has spent his entire existence looking for the ultimate answers to the universe, he hesitates.
He admits he's not sure he's ready to receive the ultimate answer. Picard tells him he has to read it.
And the note contains 4 words that shattered the entire narrative of entropy and universal boredom, implying a new beginning, a total reset.
Those 4 words are, let there be light.
Chills. Every time.
What a synthesis. I mean, we started with the cosmic boredom of eternity and the inevitability of entropic collapse, and we ended with creation itself being sparked by a desperate, arrogant act of rebellion delivered in a bottle.
The irony is just profound. The ultimate beings, Q and Melanie, were both so sick of ultimate power and ultimate knowledge that they both desired oblivion.
And Melanie, the one who could actually stop the cosmic contraction, was saved not by some organized noble effort.
But by the chaotic, desperate flailing of Q, the trickster. His messiness is what saved everything.
And Melanie leaves us with this incredible insight about the nature of omniscience itself, something that directly challenges Q's entire existence.
She tells young Q, only those who know they don't know can truly know.
That's the philosophical core of this whole thing, isn't it?
It has to be. It fundamentally challenges Q's core belief that absolute superior knowledge is the ultimate state. If you know everything, you remove all possibility of surprise, all tension, and all consequence. You stop learning.
So the very act of questioning, of embracing the state of not knowing, is necessary for true understanding.
Because it allows for discovery and subjective meaning. It allows for things to matter.
So Q's final act, when he hails himself as the trickster and the lord of chaos, that wasn't just a pointless rebellion.
Not at all. It was a cosmological spark that fulfilled Melanie's prayer for novelty. It broke her paralyzing ennui, and in doing so, it caused the universal recreation. His chaos became the foundation for a new order.
Which raises an important question for you, the listener, to mull over.
Given that the note read, "Let there be light," and the entire universe was essentially reset or recreated because of Q's chaotic, desperate act of defiance, an act that came from the absolute bottom of cosmic despair.
What does that imply about the nature of reality? That its very beginning required a total breakdown of established order and a final belligerent act.
Perhaps chaos isn't the opposite of creation, but its prerequisite.